Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to drop in the chat what agency you're joining us from today, and we will start in a few short minutes. Thanks.
Turn them off if you want to check this.
Okay, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today for this lunchtime session. Can everyone see my screen? Great. All right, so I will go ahead and introduce myself and the event. So we are here in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. We at Workwell are partnering with our colleagues at the Commission of Human Rights, and this leadership panel is entitled Pioneers of Change, Changing the Future Together. My name is Estrella. I am the Special Projects Coordinator at Workwell NYC in the Office of Labor Relations. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Workwell before we start. So if you've heard of us, you know that we are the Worksite Wellness group for City of New York employees, and our programming falls into 5 bucket areas. We have Move More, which focuses on physical activity. Eat Well focuses on healthy eating. Take Action focuses on primary care and prevention, and Be Well encourages us to have mental well-being and resilience, and Project Build, through which this webinar is a part of, focuses on health equity. And we know that so much goes into our health and wellness, including having health equity lens in all we do. I am so excited today to introduce our moderator, chair and commissioner of the NYC Commission on Human Rights. Annabelle Palma is here with us today, and she's going to help us introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Estrella. Good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know, I am Annabelle Palma, and I have the privilege and honor to chair the New York City Commission on Human Rights. I'm excited to welcome you all to our panel today in recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month as we close out Hispanic Heritage Month. I want to thank our partners at the Department of Consumer Worker Protection, New York City Aging, and the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs and the Office of Labor Relations for helping organize the important conversation we're going to have today. I think, we're doing this a little bit different. We want folks, we want to continue, right, to build on successes that have been made, and we want folks to hear from us how we were able to overcome some challenges and try to encourage individuals to continue to build on those successes that have been made. As we know, and I'll have our panelists introduce themselves. Surely, just one to just share a few words on what this means, right, to us, to honor our shared history, to celebrate the countless ways Hispanics and Latinos, New Yorkers have contributed to this great city and country. I think this is we use this time, although we celebrate every single day our culture, our history, our heritage. We use this time to reflect on the dedication and resilience of those who have come before us, and how that work continues to guide us today, right? To make an impact on what we need to continue to do to move us forward. And while we celebrate that legacy, I want to emphasize that this event is really about people who bring it to life every single day, right? The staff. I just came from an event, and the president and the chairman of the agency that I came from, right, really said it best. We cannot run our agencies without you all. You show up every single day in your authentic self to ensure that New Yorkers are served in the way that they deserve. And so each of you already have been making impacts in your own way, whether it's how you serve New Yorkers, how you support them, and we want to continue to make sure that we are supporting you in the work that you do, and allowing you to grow in your own careers. Being a pioneer of change doesn't always mean that you have to make headlines, right? It's those individuals who are working behind the scenes to ensure that everything is, that the wheels are really oiled and moving the way they need to move to be able to deliver. And so it can mean, and it can mean mentoring someone. It can mean assisting someone in assisting someone in doing their jobs and showing up consistently, or doing doing what's right, even though it isn't easy. And we all know what's happening at the federal level. We know that we're not living easy times, but you're showing up every single day, and that has an impact on what you do, and will leave an impact on the work that you do. So those daily acts of leadership create, a lasting impression, and they don't go unnoticed. And so as commissioners, we're here to share with you today. We want to be share with you today what motivated us to serve, right? What lessons we have learned over the years, and what we hope comes next for all of us. But more than anything, we want this conversation, right? We want this conversation to be something meaningful for you, for your journeys, to motivate you to keep influencing, future leaders for our city. And with that, I am thrilled to introduce Commissioner Lorraine Cortez Vasquez, Commissioner Vilda Vera Mayuga from the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, and Commissioner Manny Castro from the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. And so I'll ask Commissioner Vasquez from New York City Aging if you can share a little bit about yourself, your history, and then we can move into our conversations. Commissioner, you're muted.
I'm never muted. Mira, I am a native born East Harlem resident, proud New Yorker, proud Latina, come from a long line of people who committed to service. My grandmother was a union organizer because they treated her so fabulously at the Roosevelt and Plaza Hotel that she thought she needed a union. And she also didn't like the way they treated some of her colleagues, so they formed the union. My mother was a East Harlem community activist. My father was a Boy Scout leader for many years, so para mí, service was in my bones. It was, you had to give back. Because so much was given to us, we had to give back. And that's, and I grew up during the Vietnam era. So in addition to giving back, it was standing up and raising my voice and fighting for the rights of of our young men who were the ones dying in the Vietnam War at first before the draft. And so civic responsibility has been a part of it, but I've also taken civic responsibility to mean action. And people would always ask, like, what would it be like to be the first Latina? And some of you've heard me say this before. Being the first means absolutely nothing. It's an honor for your family. It's an honor for your community. But being the first means nothing if there's not a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, then ahí seguimos. So that is like what it means. And, you're Latina. People say, I wear it on my sleeve. I said, no, I wear it in my being. I walk into the room, I walk in as a Latina, always first and con mucho orgullo and with a lot of room for everybody else to carry their pride.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Castro, you want to go next?
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to my colleagues for joining the conversation and everyone who's part of this event. Well, first, I do want to acknowledge, how tremendously meaningful it has been for me to serve in city government this last 4 years with all of you, and in a moment where, to be frank, public service is under attack across the country at all levels. I think these types of activities are so important because ultimately, I think how we show up to work will impact our communities. And so we have to look after one another, be kind, and uplift each other. And so I've learned a tremendous amount from my fellow commissioners on the call and from all of you. So thank you. I'll be brief. I come from the nonprofit world, so my time in public service has been about 4 years, but I've always had a tremendous amount of admiration for those who have served in city government in particular, because I myself crossed the Mexican border with my mother when I was 5 years old and came to New York City and grew up undocumented in our city. And the city was not always as welcoming as it is today. And that's in large part because so many people in public service and in the nonprofit service and in our communities have fought so hard to make it possible for our immigrant communities to feel welcomed and supported, even under incredible circumstances. And so I'll leave it at that. I know that there are many other questions. I'll speak to my experience. But it's just been a tremendous honor to be in this role and to be working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Maduga.
Hi, I was going to say good morning, but it is good afternoon already. It's a little cloudy still outside. Thank you so much for having me. I think it's so great to, like you said, Commissioner Palma, to use this month to reflect. It's not just about celebrating our achievements, but also really just pause, because I think it's important to take that time to pause and reflect and yes, cherish all of the victories, but then what's next? What do we got to move on to do? I mean, for me, I have been in public service all of my professional life. Maybe the exception of like a couple years when I first came to New York. I am Puerto Rican. I am very proud Boricua, like Commissioner Cortez Vasquez, except that I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, so I have a little bit of a different experience than growing up in New York City. So it was it's been a great journey. I think I take from my parents also that my mom was a teacher in Puerto Rico for almost 30 years, and my dad worked in the phone company in Puerto Rico before it was privatized. So it's sort of what I knew. I didn't, when people ask me, why we joined public service, I try to figure out if it is that it's sort of what I knew. But I think there's a part of it that I also felt similar to my fellow commissioners, just the desire to give back and to understand that based on what you see your parents do and so many of your relatives, in order to live in community, you got to serve your community. So I think it's part of that collective effort to just being there for each other and taking from each other's strengths. to keep moving the needle in the ways that we think it's worth it and beneficial, not just to our community, but to everybody. So.
Thank you. I know, our first question that I wanted to lead us off was that, right? The inspiration. And I think through each of your introductions, you were able to share the experience, right, that inspired you to become a public servant. And, it's true for me as well, growing up in the Bronx, to Puerto Rican parents, right, who moved here seeking a better life. We ended up moving back to Puerto Rico after I was born, when I was 2, and then returned when I was 7. Just the experience of seeing my mother face so many challenges, from trying to get us into a regular classroom versus special education classroom because we didn't speak English, right? And so having to overcome those hurdles, as a union organizer, having to fight for better treatment, not only for myself but for my employees, because we were told we couldn't speak Spanish to Spanish speaking residents. So those early experiences is what helped, right, shape each and every one of us. So we show up to work to ensure that, we treat, that folks are treated with dignity and respect. And so again, excited to be having this conversation, to be able to share, our stories, which are also intertwined, even though we come from different parts, right, at different times, but nonetheless the struggles have and challenges have been similar, and have allowed us then to build, right, coalitions amongst each other to ensure that we were delivering for New Yorkers as they should, as they deserve. And so I'll lead us into our next question, which is, and this is a conversation, right? So to my fellow commissioners and panelists, jump in. We don't have to be structured. We can pretend we're around the kitchen table and we're just having coffee and bread, galleta, whatever you want, and we're having this conversation. So jump in as you see fit to share, again, in sharing in the questions. But so I'll start. I'll lead us with, throughout your journey, what lessons have shaped the way you approach your role today in government as a public servant?
Yeah, I have to say that, being born in East Harlem and seeing and being born so close to 86th Street and 79th Street, and you would walk down there and you would see them, and then you would see East Harlem. So I knew from very early on that there were differences. And some of those differences were great and aspirational, and a lot of those differences always, were imposed on us as if we created those conditions, right? And so from early on, one of the lessons that shaped me was circumstances don't determine who you are. You determine it. My grandmother used to say, mira, aquí, we're going to live as good as those people on 79th Street. Maybe this is not our building and maybe we don't have that, but we're going to leave it better than what we found it. Wherever we go, we're going to leave it better than what we found it. And we're going to make it better for others. And those are the lessons that have always shaped me. And to this day, when I go into a new job, the first thing I tell people, we got one goal, leave it better than what we found it. That's not to say that what we found was bad. That means that there's always room for improvement and there's always room for learning. And that is something I apply to myself too. At this wonderful age of 75, I can say it proudly now, at this wonderful age of 75, I still am looking for what are the improvements, lifelong learning, but I don't shy away from, calling out discrimination, calling out racism, and taking it on, and taking it on with all of the power and might of a good East Harlemite and a raised Bronxite. So, like, that is something that I will not stand by and see idly. And these times call for that. I do pick my battles, but I don't let opportunities slide, nor do I let words slide, So those are the lessons I've got, like stand up, rise up, because tú no te respetas, no te van a respetar.
Right, and I think, right, some people, I mean, I've known you the longest, Commissioner Vasquez, and I've learned so much from you, just being around you, listening, and ensuring, right, that whatever success, what worked, what you were able to succeed on, right, that we can keep building on, and that matters. It matters because there were people who, left their lives, their blood, their tears, in the streets for us to be able, right, to enjoy better times, and eat, and we have to continue to make sure that, right, that past is not forgotten, but that the work ahead of us continue to be stronger.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, and I don't mean to interrupt, and I will be quiet after this, but it's got to be said that none of us got here alone. We all stand on the shoulders. Like when people say, "Oh, you were the first," blah blah blah. No, I was the first to be picked, but I wasn't the first that earned it and should have been picked. I was just the fortunate one to be picked, and we never lose sight of that. There are a lot of fabulous people who came before us, and there's going to be thousands more who come behind us that are going to build and be better than we were. That's what we should always be striving for.
Commissioner Majuga?
Yeah, I was just gonna, I was looking at also on the chat. I know that Nicole wrote about being Mexican American and not really getting to learn Spanish from her family initially. And I just think it kind of made me think of your question, Commissioner Palma, the journey and all of that. And, you know, I shared earlier, right? I was raised in Puerto Rico, which is a very different reality for Puerto Ricans that are raised here, right? Like when I hear Commissioner Cortez Vasquez and the things that she saw and everything, it's different because in Puerto Rico, everybody's Puerto Rican, right? So so you just see that. And it was it was it was an adjustment for me to as an adult coming to New York because I just didn't realize it. It's like it doesn't matter how much you learn about it, you hear about it, about your fellow Puerto Ricans outside of Puerto Rico. You can't, it's like those struggles that people can tell you that you're just never going to know unless you go through it. And that, I think that has been an important journey for me, and not just for Puerto Ricans or about Puerto Ricans in general, but just immigrants generally. And I know that Commissioner Castro can speak a lot more about that than I can, but it's been an important part of my journey because I actually never thought I was going to leave Puerto Rico. I was one of those that is like, it's nothing else better than my island. I'm going to stay here. Why do I need to go anywhere else? But, my sister was the first one of my gigantic family of a gazillion cousins, right? My mom is one of 9 that I knew, but not one of 13 kids, right? So it's a very large family, and my sister was the very first one to actually leave Puerto Rico to go to college in the US in Boston. And when I visited her, I fell in love with Boston University because it was an open campus. I loved the city. I mean, I grew up in San Juan, which is also a city, so that part was there, but also the international community. And I was like, oh my gosh, like all these people look different and listen to all these languages. And that really fascinated me. That was like a click and something that really was a point in my life that totally changed everything because I went back to Puerto Rico for law school. But then, because I thought I was going to practice in Puerto Rico, was like the 4 years was just like a blip, right? And and then I was like literally probably just felt claustrophobic because then I felt that I had seen so much world outside of my island that I couldn't really I didn't feel like I wanted to stay anymore. I wanted to do so much more. I felt like I could do so much more outside of Puerto Rico than in Puerto Rico. And and that's not to say that if you decide to stay wherever you stay, you can't accomplish as much. But it's, for me, like sort of like that was like my journey of realizing there's so much more outside what I was used to. And also really really being willing to learn and take in, because I gotta tell you, my husband's Filipino and a little bit similar to Nicole. He grew up not learning Tagalog because his parents were like, "You look different. I can't have you sound different," you know. And now everybody's fighting to know another language, you know. But then it was just like what you just did, and it slowly like opened up my eyes to be like, wow, like I there's just so much more out there and so many struggles from so many realities of different people, and how do we work together to just really better ourselves and be there for each other and bring all of those experiences to accomplish uh e- everything that we're doing right now. But that's sort of like I wanted to share that part of my journey because it just triggered my memory when I saw Nicole's.
Absolutely. And I think, right, for like for me growing, being born in the Bronx, but then going back and forth from Puerto Rico to New York, at times you feel like you don't belong, and there's people that want to make you feel like you don't belong, and no, we do belong. We're here. This is our city. This is our country, and we have every right to be here and every right to shine. Commissioner Castro.
Thank you. I was enjoying listening to you all. It feels like I'm on a podcast again, Commissioner Palma. Quick plug. I just recorded a podcast with Commissioner Palma. They have an amazing podcast. I'm sure you'll plug it at the end of this. I
Every,
very much
yeah,
enjoyed it.
every last Monday of the month we have your your rights your rights here rights now, the New York City Human Rights radio show.
Um, I'm as I'm listening, I'm just like, this is why I'm so grateful to, have been in this role and work alongside all of you because I've just learned a tremendous amount and just hearing your stories and how you come to this work is just to me perhaps some of the things I will never forget and I will carry with me for a long time. Um, and a lot of the to your question, Commissioner, on the challenges we face in our careers. For me, whatever accomplishments I've had, they were made up because I had so many different challenges to overcome, and I learned from those challenges. And it's a tremendously difficult time right now because our communities, feel, um, under so much pressure. And, I'm thinking a lot about my time growing up in the city where, um, you know, my very own existence here was denied. And so much else was denied to my family, seeing them work so hard, my community do so much and still be denied. Um, and I didn't get to say this earlier, but part of the reason I wanted to enter public service and do this work was exactly that. Seeing people turned away without even an explanation as to why, or even to say, can I help, right? Or I've been through that experience, to me was something that I wanted to change. And it's for me the biggest takeaway from having been denied so much and still get to the point I am is to realize that being denied is not the end, and it should not be the end. And it's what's defined our immigrant communities and our Latino communities here, that despite so much being thrown at them over its history, we've continued to move forward. And not to say that it hasn't been hard and it's been devastating, but to Commissioner Cortez's Vasquez point, this is why we are uh, on the shoulders of so much that's happened before us, and likely that will happen, after we're done with our service. And so I do want to say that because um, I do think that there's a whole lot of pessimism and cynicism, perhaps, because of what we're seeing and maybe not seeing a way forward. But we've been through this before. And the last thing I'll say is that it had not been for the courage that my mother had to cross that border and to make that journey, I would not be here today. And um, So all those challenges, you know, whether big or small, day to day, that's what makes me who I am today. And for that I'm grateful, even though it's been really hard.
Thank you, Commissioner Castro. It's always so inspiring to hear your story. You know, you just, you know, your story allows us, right, to continue to like lift ourselves up and wanna continue to ensure that we're leading with empathy and with resilience and not to let not to let any of those challenges stop us. I know all too well as a single mom raising a as a 17-year-old single mom, right? What it's like to be underestimated, what it's like to be told you'll never get anywhere, you'll never accomplish anything. And if it wasn't for individuals along my career path that really helped, right, help me look within myself and help me understand that these challenges can actually shape your life and can actually help you um, be part of the change that needs to happen so that someone else doesn't feel less than or cast out. And Commissioner Castro took us into overcoming challenges, and so I would like to hear from both Commissioner Majuga and Commissioner Cortez Vasquez, if she's still with us, because I know she may have to drop off. But I'm curious, what challenges have you faced,
You know,
and what has taught you about leadership?
I've been really blessed. I've been blessed with people. I remember, Annabelle, when you were a council member, like, so when, like when people talk about underestimating, you went from being a teenage mom to a council member. Okay. Just try that one on for size. All right. So, and you did a few things in between there. So, when you talk about challenges, I think of challenges that were things beyond my control. Like some challenges, I had total control over, but some weren't. And the one that comes to mind the most, and I think it was so defining for me, and it goes back to something that you said, Manny, Commissioner Castro. 9/11, we've been through bad times. We've been through bad times, but I don't think we've ever been through anything like this, to be honest with you. And I hope that in the next 20 years I have left of life, that I don't go through this again. Because these last 9 months have been something that every day I wake up like, okay, God, tell me it's a dream. But it's not. But 9/11 for me was a defining point. I was with the Hispanic Federation, and 9/11 happened, and there was a rallying cry for the families that suffered in the Twin Towers. But all of that suffering, none of them included the secretary, and none of the stories included the secretary, the deliverer, the guy who was washing the dishes at the restaurant, Windows of the World. It didn't include the delivery guy. It didn't. And so all of a sudden, with the, like rallying around this whole idea of compensation, and justice, and then to see an entire community in that 9/11 towers almost not thought about until we said, excuse me, there's another set of families here besides the financial and the professionals who lived in that building. There's an entire community who served those people. And that challenge was the one that I think, and I can go to Aspira and the Department of Education and all of that, but nothing challenged me like that, because these were the human service professionals who were not willing to kind of like embrace that. This was United Way. That's what the other day when somebody said it makes a difference who leadership at the top. I thank God every day that Grace is at United Way. Because had she been at United Way on 9/11, I would not have to go into rooms and people like hold their head and say, oh my gosh, she's coming back with predictable behavior. Because it was sort of like, no, you're going to look at all of those people we're talking about and use those same actuarial charts, those charts that you have that determine somebody's value in life on these families. Because this family is not worth less than that family. And it got to those kind of basics. Well, maybe we should come up with a different social service system for these other families. And I was like, wait a minute, that social service system has served my community for years. If it's been adequate enough to serve my community, then why is it inadequate to serve other people? And I said, no, why don't we improve the system rather than create a new system for others? And it was that it was just a rude reawakening. Like I said, Mira, when everybody is down, we still gotta fight like hell to be recognized and to have systems change. And that is why I think we're all in this business, is to constantly, you talked about change agents and changing the future together. We never could lose sight that these systems have to respond to all. And all means all. Gender, preference, sexual orientation, all. And the community have to make sure that if that system is not responding for that individual or for that group of people, then we need to remind the system, no. Go back and recalibrate. This is something that happened. And that was a year of battle before they started really. And then on the heels of that, we have Flight 587. So it was like a double whammy. But you have to constantly make systems change. No, our family constellations are different. Yes, we have multiple names. Yes, we reside. Yes, we may have many parents call themselves parents and many children. It's like you had to like do an education 101, 1 minus 1 on systems so that they could be responsive to our communities, all with the intention of good, but with lack of knowledge and really lack of interest in changing. Con eso lo digo todo.
Thank you. Commissioner Majuga, you want to?
Yeah, well, actually, I was gonna, it's funny. It's not funny. I always use that word. We all use that word. It's funny. It was like, actually, it's not funny. When I was hearing your question, I actually I just went to a little bit, and maybe I'm just too selfish. I don't know. I need to learn from Commissioner Cortez Vasquez.
You are not selfish at all.
I was, in thinking about challenges, I've been a pretty daring individual throughout my life. The chiquitita, like I just like people are like, oh my gosh, in Spanish they would say, donde se arrepienta Bildi, se rebala Bildi, se revienta un mono, because I would just go. I like rarely would stop and think, and I was like, of anything that would try to stop me. But I will say that because of that, challenges, and at least for me to like develop professionally, is thinking that I don't need help.
Just like, I think a lot of us make that mistake, right? If I can, not that mistake, or take that, say, well, I can do
it. It is a mistake. I do think it's a mistake. I do think it's a mistake because there's this, the more, and as it's my first time as commissioner, I hadn't been a commissioner, head of an agency before, right? And so there's been a lot of growth and a lot of learning because people really look up to you and people are looking at you, right? As a commissioner, people are like, so what do you want? I was like, what do you mean, what do I want? I got to tell you what I want? I thought you just show up and somebody's going to give me a list of tasks to complete and I'm good. And no, that's not it. And it's been a incredible moment of growth for me the last few years as commissioner of a city agency. And I realized that my biggest challenges are that it's like, remember that you should ask for help, and be vulnerable and be okay with failure. because even to become commissioner, that was sort of like the first time in my professional career that I really put myself out there. And I had to really say, this is what I want, understanding that I might not get it. So then, like everybody that I said, I'm going to go for this, I had to be okay with being like, oh, I didn't get it. And that to me, for me, that was a big step. Just being like, okay, if I really want it, this is the way I'm gonna have to do it. And just like saying it to everybody who I thought, could support me or could give me feedback or could help me get there or could be like, well, you need a little bit more years, whatever it was. I needed to be okay with getting that all of that feedback and all of that information from the right people, right? I mean, people like, again, I think we all look up to Lorraine, Commissioner Cortez Vasquez, because she's been
Por
through.
vieja, por vieja.
No, but wow, no, it's a lot of, you've been everywhere. And I mean, but obviously also you, Commissioner Palma, all of your challenges just as a human and still make it like there's nothing that can get in your way that you cannot overcome with the right support. And so I think for me that's been part of that journey and part of like challenges to overcoming my professional career, of sort of you want to demonstrate that we can make it, we could do it, but and which is 100% true. It doesn't mean that we don't need help from others, who care and have been through it before. And I can tell you, it's like, all right, not every nobody's experience is the same and goes through the same path, but these are things that I encounter through my path that you should know about so that you can learn from them and then take from those whatever it may help you with or not. And so again, just asking, remember, you're going to ask for help. You should ask for help when you need it. And be,
And what, and
okay,
can I just interrupt you for a minute, Vilma?
please.
The most important thing is that people want to help.
Yeah,
People
100%.
want to help. So it's not that you're vulnerable or that you can't do it. It's just like, God, it's so much easier when you do it together or with
Right.
somebody,
Yep.
And I think that
Mhm.
leads us right to inclusion, right? And Commissioner Cortez Vasquez said it brilliantly earlier. It starts with helping each other out. It starts with knowing that we didn't get here by ourselves. How we treat one another. We know we can. I know I can fight human rights across the city if I don't have partners like you all in helping me identify what human rights looks like in your agencies, right? And how we need to collaborate. And if we're not modeling those values within our agencies, then we know we're not doing the work that needs to be done. So I would love to hear from you how you foster well-being and inclusion while also driving important change within your agencies.
I'm gonna give you my response and then I gotta run because I have to go for a doctor's appointment.
And we thank you for being with us.
And there's no place I would rather have been going than with my three colleagues. But I want you to know that you can be a hard taskmaster, a tough boss, and a loving boss all at the same time and create a place of justice in your own agency. I am proud to say that if you go look at city and state and start looking at the top places to work in New York City, who's there as number one? I think we're number one or number two, but I'm going to take number one, and that is NYC Aging. You know why? Because we play hard, we fight hard, we work hard, and it's not only for the older adults in this city, it is for the staff that make it possible every day. So kudos to NYC Aging and kudos to you, my colleagues. And you're Latino, you're born Latino, you're gonna die Latino, so might as well embrace it in between. All right, adios.
Thank you.
Bye.
Commissioner Castro.
Well, Commissioner, um, there's so many ways to take this, but just to continue on the Commissioner Mayuga's sort of line of thinking around, um, what does it mean to learn from or to be willing to put yourself out there and maybe fail? That's been consistently on our mind. because we frankly, over the last, years, responding to crises where we did not have a roadmap, where the city was not, necessarily always equipped to do or had a role, we've had to, try things out, some of which have worked and others didn't. And if you didn't put yourself out there and be willing to fail, then you would just be frozen in place. And that's a difficult thing to like manage and just uh, overcome. But together, I think with that is constantly be in the mindset of learning, and that to me has been important. And I encourage my team here to also be constantly learning, and to try things out, even if we fail, and to do that not just as individuals but as teams. And that's how we've grown together. That's how we've been able to do so much despite our, frankly, our size. We're a smaller office in this ecosystem, um, and we get ourselves out there, right? And respond head on to whatever's coming our way. And frankly, uh, try and bring as many people along. Earlier this year, I was asked a couple of times, well, how does it feel to not be in a humanitarian emergency anymore? And I was like, what are you talking about? We've moved on to another emergency. Um, and that's just been our role at Moya. And frankly, in my career, Commissioner Cortez Vasquez mentioned this, right after 9/11, I was one of those organizers trying to help impacted families, and families who've lost loved ones after the attacks. And I just couldn't imagine how unresponsive all the systems were, and the individuals in positions to do something for these families. And I haven't stopped since. It seems like every crisis, every natural disaster, our communities, whether it's Latinos or undocumented or low income folks, if we're not vigilant, we get left behind. And which is why it's so important to also recognize that when we need help, we ask for it. Otherwise, those who we're trying to support will suffer as a result. So there's a lot there, but it's a lot to reflect on. I thank you for this time. I don't know if we're at time soon, but this has been great.
I have a couple of questions that were dropped in the chat, so I'll start us off with someone asked, "How do you keep your spirits up in a landscape that feels anti-Latino? How do we motivate others to keep going?" And I think this morning I was asked to speak at the Port Authority um, to in their Hispanic heritage celebration. And I said we're living challenging times. We're living times where people or leadership, right, at the federal level wants to make us feel like we don't belong, and we do belong. We've built this country. We've have contributed. We have made. We have opened doors. We have. We serve food. We clean. We're janitors. We are teachers. We're leaders of cities and states, right? And so we need to make sure that those coming behind us know that they too belong, right? And that we're gonna keep opening those doors, and we're gonna keep going through. Not if we can climb the mountain, we're gonna go around the mountain or dig through the mountain, but we're gonna keep on moving ahead and paving the way, right? Just as those who did it for us, and so I know for me, just not giving up, that's not an option. I have to, and to quote what Lorraine Cortez Vasquez said earlier, I have to leave this city better than I found it. And so I want to continue to make my contribution to ensure that there's equity, right? Equity for all. That, you know, people talk about equality, but equity is important, right? That we want to make sure that we all know that we belong, right, in this city and in this great country of ours.
Commissioner Powell, can I address one of the questions that I think that I'd love to talk about? I think it talks about being the first. You know, do you believe that they are likely to be second, third, or fourth?
The current climate, right, is challenging.
Yeah, and I think so. Yes, I mean, I think to me, yes, absolutely, and I think part of how we get there is that, at least, you know, I'm pretty sure we're like in similar situations where I see my role, having become a commissioner, of ensuring that I am opening doors for other Latinos as well and other people of color,
Right.
right? Because that's the only way you're going to make sure there's a second and a third, regardless. It could be the friendliest of political environments. And if we don't nurture and make sure that we give this space for our own communities to grow and develop the skills that they need so that they can be ready to be selected for that leadership role, it's a political climate is not gonna be what determines. It's opening doors, making sure we push our communities to get whatever experience they need so that they are prepared to take on the job, and nobody can say like, oh, well, they're not qualified. Oh, but there is a long list of people qualified
Right.
from our community. So I think that's how we ensure that there's many numbers of us after, and not regardless of political climate.
Right. Commissioner Castro, would you like to add to that one?
No, absolutely. I think commissioners, you're right about, making sure that we're thinking about a pipeline. There's always so much in front of us, and sometimes that falls to wayside. It's so important. I I think that we need more people in positions of not just leadership, but in government in general who have those direct experiences that our communities have had, because they, I often talk about in the office how so many policy decisions are made in government on a day-to-day basis. These are not policy decisions that make headlines or that get a vote in city council, in that are maybe the most controversial, but they are nonetheless really important. And if we don't have positions in leadership or in government to be able to make these policy decisions that are informed and rooted in the lives of the people that these policies are serving, then what are we doing? And so I think a lot about that. I think so much about that because again, um, I understood, my team understood that us responding to the asylum seekers arriving to Port Authority was so important because of everything else that we saw coming, even though the Authority is technically a state, agency, they were arriving. We understood that there was a, a piece of humanity there that we needed to look at, right? Because these were children and families arriving without any support, often being sent here against their will, and no one was going to be there on the other side to greet them and embrace them. Uh, so this was not a government decision. It was a human decision, and it comes about because so many of us have had those experiences. Um, my concern is that next time this happens, maybe we wouldn't have that, we wouldn't have those folks who have had those experiences to know that I rather respond, and then explain why is it that I respond that way. Um, that's where my headspace is now.
And I know that we're working really hard so that there isn't a next time. We want to make sure, right? Like you and Commissioner Majuga have stated that we have people in place to ensure that next time doesn't happen, but that we are proactive in ensuring, right, how we are able to serve those individuals. And I think, I know that there's not any one way to be Latino. There's many different ways to be Latino, to embrace our heritage. I mean, some of us were born here. Some of us were forced to come here without us wanting to be here. And and others are forced to stay out of this great city and this great country. And so I think the work we do is extremely important in letting everyone know, right, that we are all in this together, and we all belong, that we all belong, and we will keep fighting to make sure that there's inclusion and equity, and that our future can be in the hands of individuals who really are going to continue to build on the changes that we have been able to see. I want to thank you both for taking the time to join us, to be part of this panel. I said this morning, and I've been saying all month, even though we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, we celebrate our cultures and our diversities every single day, and we want to ensure, right, we're not limited to a month or a day, but the work that we do every single day demonstrates the commitment, the compassion, and the dedication that we have to our cultures. And it's so beautiful to know, right, whether you're Puerto Rican or Mexican or from Venezuela or any other Latin community, that when what binds us together, right, is that Hispanic heritage, that language that we're able to understand, and the our cultures so intertwined with one another. And so I thank you both for sharing your experiences, for being vulnerable. Not, sometimes we are looked at as leaders, and some people don't understand that. I mean, my personal experience have been like, do do I belong where I'm at? I was told I'm not supposed to be where I am today, right? Because of all the experiences that I had. But I very much belong here because my voice matters, and my voice makes a change for those individuals who need a voice to help them um, come along. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
commissioners, and big shout out to Workwell Estrella for putting this together. Had
Yes,
a lot
thank
of fun.
you, work well.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. It's really great to be able to sit in on this conversation. You all are such excellent leaders and have really, really good insight. And we really appreciate you taking the time of your busy day to join us for this little conversation that we've had. So really quickly, we're going to transition, and I'm going to tell you about an upcoming event for Commission on Human Rights. So they are hosting the New York City Human Rights Summit on October 30th in partnership with Fordham. There is the registration link we will be sending out as part of the deck as well at the end of our session today. And I also want to tell you very quickly about some upcoming WorkWell events. So on October 28th, we'll have our Burnout Strategies webinar at 12 p.m. to be able to handle challenges and recharge and build healthier routines. We are also going to have on November 6th at 6 p.m. at Harlem Hospital a new event called Overcoming Hurdles, a book discussion. We will be discussing Running While Black by Alison Mariella Desir, and it's open to everyone regardless of previous running experience. So please join us there as well. Very quickly, I am going to launch a quick poll. Feel free to let us know how we're doing. And we appreciate you taking the time to join us for this conversation as well. Great, awesome. Okay, so we will sign off very quickly, and we will say thank you, muchas gracias a ustedes para estar con nosotros hoy.
Gracias, Shreya. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.